a young man then, named Eric Kelly, and I worked together at United Way of Palm Beach County. And after we'd been working together for a few years, Eric left United Way of Palm Beach County and went to work as executive director of the Allegheny Franciscan Foundation of Palm Beach. And a few years later, I followed him. So it's kind of a funny path that we took, where Eric was ultimately the regional vice president for the Palm Beach region, Palm Beach, Martin, St. Lucie County of Allegheny Franciscan Ministries, and I came over as the president and CEO of the organization. So we had a great few years until 8 years ago of working together. Eric, so I like to think that we have a small part, and the sisters certainly have a big part in Eric's life and development as a professional and as an amazing man. Eric is now the president and CEO of Quantum Foundation in Palm Beach County. And we're really excited that he was able to make the trek up north to talk with us a little bit and tell a part of his story tonight.
There you go. All right. So this is the hard part because you've already eaten, and I know what happens when we eat. So you hold off before Itis grab hold of you. But y'all know what Itis is. As Eileen said, my name is Eric Kelly, and I presently serve as the president and CEO of Quantum Foundation up in Palm Beach. And before coming to Quantum, indeed, I worked with and for and around the sisters, and Eileen was at the time came in as CEO of Allegheny, and so as they ushered me through my career, I now have the great opportunity to do very much what we were doing at Allegheny and what you all are doing, I get to do at Quantum Foundation. I have a team of folks who work with us. But I don't want to talk about Eric Kelly today. I don't want to talk about the guy that you see standing before you today with the nice shoes that I hope shine, because my mom always said, boy, make sure your shoes are shine, your teeth are clean, your hair is combed, which I don't have anymore, so mom, you got to work like that. And your fingernails are clean. That's what mama would tell me before I went out. So before I became this man, I want to tell you about the things I learned about what I do today as a foundation leader, the things I learned as a child that I've never forgotten. And these are the lessons that today I still carry with me. So you see on the screen the title of my story. And you're saying, what kind of story is this we're about to hear? Let me tell you. Growing up as a poor black boy in the old country of Palatka, Florida. And then when my mama made it, we moved to the housing projects. Like the Jeffersons, we moved on up. 505 North 23rd Street Apartment, C152. Those are the projects we lived in. But when we lived out in the old country, there was something that I learned every day growing up as a little boy. And so I called my story, catching tadpoles, skeeter hawks, and eating them peaceful away. Watching grasshoppers in little jars. Can you hear what they say? When I was a boy, after the big rain would come, around my grandparents' house, my mom was a single mom. She was a teenage, unwed mom with my sister, and then I was born. We lived with our grandparents. We actually called our mama by her first name, Barbara, and we called our grandparents Mama and Daddy because she called them Mama and Daddy. Y'all think I know that kind of story? Yes. So we called our grandparents Mama and Daddy. We lived in an old shotgun house, but when the rains would come around the house, there were ditches, and the ditches would swell, and the tadpoles would come out. And we'd go out and catch the tadpoles. Well, I learned something about tadpoles. Tadpoles is just a precursor to another animal. Do you know what it is? A frog. Well, we used to catch these tadpoles, and you know what a tadpole is. This is a tadpole. Big old headed thing with a little tail. Well, the tadpole was only a tadpole for a while. We would catch the tadpole, we take out some of the ditch water and the dirt, we get some plants, and we put it in a big old jug. We cut the milk jug, because we didn't have nice bowls like my kids have. They run and get these nice things. We had to cut an old milk jug, and we scoop water out of the ditch, and we take the tadpoles and put the tadpoles in the water. Well, lo and behold, in the right time, the tadpole would transform. The transformation was not cute, y'all. This big-headed thing with a little tail would start sprouting out these funny-looking things off the back of it. And before it became the frog that hopped away, it went through a very uncomfortable, to me looking, ugly transformation. But the thing I learned about a tadpole is, if it's in its own and right environment, the previous slides, you heard all of the words that we now call, the big words we use. Another word we use is called the ecosystem. An ecosystem is all of the things around you in your environment that should either help you remain healthy or it's the thing that will kill you. Well, for a tadpole, as long as it's in its ecosystem, you get it in its water, you give it a little of its own environment, and it will naturally transform. But that transformation is not always pretty. What did the tadpole teach me? Number one, the tadpole taught me that as long as it is in an ecosystem or an environment that is conducive to its growth, it will sprout legs and it will hop away. But you gotta have it in a good ecosystem. It's gotta have the right water, the right plants. And it has to have what God naturally gave it, the ability to sprout legs, and for a little while it's gonna be uncomfortable. Somebody say it's uncomfortable. Transformation is uncomfortable. For a little while it's going to be ugly. Somebody say it's ugly. It's not always pretty. In the old country they used to say, God don't like ugly and he ain't too particular about pretty. Frogs, before they become frogs, they ain't too particularly pretty when they become frogs, but it's really ugly when it's a tadpole. And the work you're doing, it can get messy, but you're transforming. The first thing I learned about from the tadpole is, the tadpole is the precursor to the frog. I may not be pretty, but I'm transformed and I'm hopping away. That's what the tadpole taught me. Well, also in the old country, there's what we call the skeeter hawk. Now it's really a dragonfly, but they told us it was a mosquito hawk. And we called it skeeter hawks. Well, in the old country, because we didn't have iPads and we didn't have the Wii and we didn't have Xbox and we didn't have Fortnite, so we had to go outside and find something to play with. They tell us, boy, go out them doors and play. With what? With what shall I play? Whatever's out there. Well, we found tadpoles and then we found mosquito hawks. Well, I learned something from a mosquito hawk. You see the tail of the mosquito hawk right here? Well, we used to... Back it up, Eric. Back it up. Going too far. No, you're going too far. Yeah, you're going too far now. Well, see, about this time I'm home with my family, so you know, I don't know how we do it. You know we bilingual. You know I have to talk today in that meeting, but you know what I'm going to do when I get home. So this skeeter hawk has this nice tail, and sometimes my grandparents had this old shotgun house with a screen. The skeeter hawks would come in and get trapped, and it was our game to catch it. Now in this story, no animal is harmed, to my animal lovers. We catch the skeeter hawk and we go get a piece of thread, and we tie a piece of thread to the tail and to our wrist. And that game was just simply to watch the skeeter hawk fly around. We have it on our wrist and it would just fly around. We walk around with a piece of thread and a skeeter hawk. Well, it's the only toy we had. She said nice toys. That's all you got. For the kids, for child's play, it was fun. But for this dragonfly, who God gave 4 transparent wings to move about, it's not fun.
Right.
When you're held down, when you're tied to things that you don't want to be tied to, when you can see the thing that you're supposed to be and supposed to be doing, you know that you're supposed to be flying out there, but you're tied down to things you don't want to be tied down to. The skeeter hawk taught me something. Because whenever we get ready to take that string off, that thing would shoot out. And it would be gone before you could see it. See, this is what I learned about community. Certain communities that have been disinvested for so long, held down by laws and held down by systems and held down by policies that were intentionally created. Now, let's not go there. But there are some things that were intentionally put in place in this country a long time ago that represent the string and the wrist of men that held down the creatures that God gave good wings to fly. But every now and then, it takes an organization like Allegheny Franciscan Ministries come and say, let that thing go. Let that thing fly the way God taught it to fly. The skeeter hawk. The tadpole taught me that there's always going to be transformation as long as the ecosystem is good. I may not be the prettiest thing, but I'm going to transform, and when it's over, I'm going to sprout my legs and I'll move. The Skeeterhawk taught me this. It was never intended to be tied down. But if we tie it down, the moment something lets it go, it's going. Now, the other thing that would happen, because we grew up poor, the other thing that would happen is, whenever we would run out of sugar or flour at the house. Now, when we moved out of the old country, we moved into the projects. In between the old country and the projects were the railroad tracks. And right on the railroad tracks, you get on the railroad tracks, you walk for a little bit, and then you end up in the projects. Well, when we moved to the housing projects, 505 North 23rd Street, apartment C-152 in Sugar Hill. In Sugar Hill, when we moved to the housing projects, my mom, single mom with 2 kids, every now and then money would get funny, as we say, get tight. And you gotta make that Kool-Aid, so we run out of sugar. So my mom, and we had phones, we got a phone, y'all, so my grandma, but we had the rotary. Y'all remember them rotaries? Yeah. Come on now. Tick, 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 tick. Tick, 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 tick. And you know what's funny? I still remember my grandmama's phone number. 328-4286. I still remember it from way back as a kid. So sometimes when we would run out of sugar because my mom wanted to make Kool-Aid for dinner, it's not healthy, so don't let your children drink that stuff. But back in the day, they didn't know no better, that's all they had. Well, my mama would say, call your grandma and see if she got some sugar. And so I called my grandma, and this is how we'd say it. She answered the phone, she said, hello, I said, and we called her mama. So I said, mama, Barbara said, you got some sugar. And then sometimes if I call her mama, I say, mama said, you got some sugar. You know how you say, my mama said, you got some sugar. And so she said, yeah, I got some. I'm gonna call your cousin, meet him on the trash. And what they say is, you come piece the way, and he'll come piece the way. So we'd have to meet him piece the way. And what my grandma would do, she'd get an old bag. They used to keep them under the sink. It was an old paper bag like this. And she'd always have to hit it. She'd get that old paper bag, and it looked about as beat up as this one. And she'd put some sugar in it, and they'd roll it down like this here. And they get it real tight. And they say, take this here. She'd tell my cousin, Nikki, take this here across the tracks over there. I can't tell you what my nickname was, but I'll say Eric. No, I can't. No, we're not doing that. That's not this. That's not. So she tell my cousin, she say, take this here, and up there, and Eric will meet you. And Eric will meet you pieced away. Bob Rand, because that's my mom. Bob Rand needs some sugar. See, we all grew up in the same community. Ain't that crazy? Bob Rand. That Bob Rand is Bob Rand. We all grew up in the same community. So they take that old paper bag with some sugar in it, and we'd meet pieced away. He'd leave my grandma's house. We would leave the projects. We'd meet along the tracks, and we never just dropped off the bag and go home. We'd have to pick berries on the track. We'd get rocks and throw the rocks on. But after we get done, I'd run back home with the brown paper bag with some sugar, flour, whatever it is, and Nick would go on home. But here's what Pieced Away taught me. There is something about community. You may not have much. The sisters taught me this. One of the things that they would often correct is saying poor people. Because people aren't poor. They're rich in many other ways. Yes. Now they may have some economic challenges, yes, but you don't understand the richness of community until you've lived in an impoverished community. Yes, yes. And the thing I love most about community is the ability and willingness to share. And that's what I mean about meeting them pieced away. You see, there are people in community. This is what I know about philanthropy now. There are people in communities, they don't need your handout. He just needs you to meet them pieced away. I'll come my way along the track. You just come your way along the track. You bring that old brown paper bag to me, and you give me what I need, and I can go back and make what I need to make happen. I just need you to meet me pieced away. Pieced away. I'm not asking asking you to give me all you got. Just give me enough to make what I need to make. Just meet me pieced away. And so now I sit and I sign checks and I'm reading proposals and I go into communities and I see people and I don't look at people anymore as these troubled communities I call them transforming communities. It may not be pretty now, it may not be the prettiest thing you get done, but by God I'm gonna get my legs and I'm gonna hop away. I look at people in community to this day and they say, why they all they seem to be doing is running around in circles? Well, that's because you got me chained down by threads onto something I was never meant to be chained down like this. I was intended by God with 4 beautiful translucent wings to fly. And if you just meet me pieced away with what I need, I'll make more of what I have. Now, this last thing that I learned was really from the grasshopper. You see, a grasshopper is interesting. If you put a grasshopper in a jar and close the lid, this is what happens. Grasshoppers are supposed to hop, hence the name grasshopper. That's what they do. But in a jar with the lid closed, the grasshopper will hop and hop and hop, hit its head repeatedly. After a while, the grasshopper will stop hopping, even when the lid is removed. It's interesting. Try it one day. This is what we did when we were little. Because we thought it was cute to catch grasshoppers, and you take a knife and you poke them. It was always pickle jars for some reason. You have pickles, you take a pickle jar, you poke holes in because you don't want the thing to die, so you poke holes in it, give it a little air. But here's the thing that happens. If you take a grasshopper that's supposed to hop, you put a lid and close the lid, even if you give it air to breathe, over time, it'll keep hopping. It'll hit the top of the lid. It'll fall. It'll hop. It'll hit the top of the lid. It'll fall. It'll hit the top of the lid. And finally, it'll realize, I can no longer hop. It's not that it can't hop anymore. What it realized is, it has been given a ceiling. So remember what I said. Everything that I learned about philanthropy, I learned as a child. Catching tadpoles, skeeter hawks, meeting them pieced away. Watching grasshoppers in lidded jars, can you hear what they say? If you've ever been out in the old country, now crickets make one sound, grasshoppers make another. Crickets make a very sharp, piercing sound. Grasshoppers have a smooth, soothing sound. You'll know the difference when you hear it. If you've ever noticed grasshoppers, they make sounds that are melodious and soothing when they are comfortable and in their environment. You put them in a jar and put the lid on it. Once they stop hopping, they stop making sounds. So when you take the lid off, not only does it not hop, it makes no sound. And even if you take the jar and put it on the grass, you may have to take your finger and push it because it has become paralyzed by being held in that jar. What did I learn from watching grasshoppers in a lidded jar? Let me just tell you this anecdote. We're working on a similar project in Palm Beach County. My good friend, where's your pen, by the way? Okay, I don't have hold on, I guess if I had to put my glasses on.
She said quiet.
Okay, there you go, now I see your pen. Your pen has been helping us, Quantum Foundation, because you all are much further along than where we are. And I was in a meeting not long ago and someone said to me, well, why is it a person not listen, this of color stuff, a person who was not black, African American, I was going to say not of color, but black, said, why is it seen that in the black community, other communities can come, immigrant communities come, and they're offered opportunity and they seem to take it. You go into black communities and you offer all this opportunity and they don't do anything with it. And I looked at the person who said that to me and I said, well, if you put a grasshopper in a jar and you seal the lid on it, and if that thing keeps hitting its head on the lid, eventually when you take the lid off, that's called making the playing field equal, and you say, I have a program for you, the grasshopper is just going to sit there. And this is another thing you have to think about. You see, immigrant populations come here for freedom, to escape their oppressor. Now this is a little controversial statement I'm going to make, but hang on. What do you do when your oppressor is your country? What do you do when the lid is your community? You see, others had opportunity to sprout their wings in other places, other countries, other lands, get their legs, get their wings and fly away and come here and get sanctuary. But when your community was and is lidded, what happens to the grasshopper? Think about it. Think about it. It's not that the community doesn't want and doesn't desire better. It's that the grasshopper has been silenced. When you don't see a grasshopper hopping and you can't hear it chirping, you got to ask yourself, why can't I hear what it's saying? When communities are silenced, even when you try to get them to speak, we call it the hard to reach community. It's not hard to reach. It's just been silenced because the lid has been on. Watching grasshoppers in lidded jars, can you hear what they say? I don't hear anything. They're not saying anything. That's because they've hit their head too many times. What have I learned in philanthropy? Just like the grasshopper, I can't blame the community for its silence. It's just like a grasshopper. It was meant to hop. But when social, societal, political constructs hold down the lid, and even when we say civil rights, you have been free, the grasshopper just sits there because it doesn't know what to do. What else gonna do now, Miss Seeley? That's all my color purple people. Y'all remember that movie? The Color Purple. So do you do right by me? Think about it. No, I want you to think about it. This is community conversation. We have to think about this as foundations. When you go into communities and want to have community conversation, the community doesn't seem to be saying what the rest of it is because, well, we've been in this lidded place for so long. Other communities come here for sanctuary. This is our oppression. So now you got to think about how do you get the grasshopper that's been oppressed with the lid that is called its own land to speak again. In this country, we take precious dollars to interpret and to translate for communities that come here from other countries. We got to first teach our own communities how to speak again, how to live again, how to hope again, how to love again. Take the lid off the grasshopper and let the grasshopper hop. Well, I'm a Baptist preacher, so when we say I'm almost done, that's about 30 more minutes, but I'm tired. No, but I'm tired. I got another hour to drive, so we're gonna be almost done for real. Speaking of young grasshoppers, now this is young grasshopper. That's me. That's me. We're not doing that, I told y'all. No. On my favorite little horse that I got. Remember that tadpole? It's a little tadpole right there. Little tadpole. Little tadpole, but one day that little boy grew up and started catching skeeter hawks, tying them to his wrist and watching them go. And one day that little boy right there, living in this house right here, that's the house I grew up in. That's the ditch right there. When the rains would come, this would fill with water. Now my grandma always called my granddaddy Eddie. She'd say, Eddie, get your sorry self from going to fix that mailbox. That's supposed to be the mailbox. The mailman had to come knock on the door. My granddad said, he gonna bring it up to the door anyhow. Well, that's because you ain't got the mailbox up. That's the house I grew up in. That was my ecosystem. I broke my jaw as a little boy, and my grandparents, they took me. My mom, she worked all the time. She was the press and the dry cleaners. And then they took me to the community health center, they call it, or the rural health clinic. And my granddaddy called it the cruel health clinic. He said, because they're cruel to black folk. They told my mom I had an abscess too. My jaw was broken. For almost a month, I walked around with a broken jaw, taking antibiotics. So my ecosystem It didn't look like the right place for a young grasshopper to grow up. It didn't look like the right place for little tadpole to grow up. It didn't look like the right place for the skeeter hawk to fly. But because of some of the very things you all are doing, because of the very things you all are talking about, I want to show you a little grasshopper now with all his other little grasshoppers. Yeah. This is my wife, Kira, wife of 21 years. It's our oldest, our daughter, Madison, who just got accepted and off to college next year. She just came back from Georgia Southern. She was invited to the scholarship showcase weekend where she interviewed for many scholarships. Statesboro, Georgia, that's right. And one of them would be a full ride out of the Honors College. Y'all pray, because she needs that one. This is our oldest son, Mason. Matt is a violinist. She plays soccer, captain of the soccer team. Mason plays piano, loves chess. He runs cross country. This is our middle boy, Miles. Miles plays football, flag. I'm not letting him get that tackle. I don't have time to go into the hospital. Soccer and basketball. This is our baby boy, Malachi. He's 9. If it had not been for the things that you're doing now, little grasshopper would have remained in that jar, silent. But because of what you do, and it may not look pretty now because you're transforming, but one day, and I was sitting there talking to Annette, and the one thing I say all the time now is, look, my mama taught me this, leave a place better than you found it. Lincoln Park may not be your home forever, but leave it better than you found it. Leave it better for the next grasshopper, so that this becomes the future. Is that all right? Yeah. So listen. This is what I learned as a child, catching tadpoles and skeeter hawks, meeting them pieced away, watching grasshoppers with lidded jaws. Can you hear what they say?